Hi, thank you for joining me for another Use Your Scraps layout video. And today I'm first of all showing you a layout that I did back in around 2012, possibly 2013. And that's what I'm going to use as my inspiration for today's layout. It's based on quilting patterns, and quilting patterns are great for using up scraps of your pattern papers. So I'm cutting lots of squares. Sorry, I can't find my words today. Lots of squares that are 1 3/4 inch square, and then I'm going to trim those down into triangles to use on the layout. Now I've just pulled out some papers that will match nicely with that photo, which is my two kids and Leanne's daughter Sophie when we took them to Disney on Ice way back in the day. It was back in 2012. So I've just pulled out colours that I thought would work nicely from my scraps box, and you can see I'm just going through and trimming down each piece into one strip of 1 3/4 inches, and then cutting that strip down into squares. So depending on how big the strip is, depends on how many squares I get from it, obviously. So I won't make you watch me doing all of this, but I do go through quite a few of the papers that I've got there because I do want a good variety in the triangles. It's surprising how many different colours that you need. So now I've pulled out my smaller guillotine and I'm just cutting those in half. If you've got a good eye, you could definitely use some scissors, but I just find it easier using the guillotine. So you can see I'm just taking, I think I took 2 of each of the squares and cut them into triangles to start with. And then I'll move on from there. If I need to cut more, I can. So you can see my card is a little bit bashed up. I managed to drop a packet of card on the floor. So I'm slowly working my way through using that on my layouts. And where possible, obviously, I'm going to cover up that dinted corner, but it's not always possible. But it doesn't bother me. Once they're in an album, you don't really notice. So you can see I'm just spreading these triangles across the page, just trying to work out, check that they do fit, and they don't quite fit perfectly, but this is a very forgiving pattern, so don't worry too much if they don't fit absolutely perfectly across the page. And just using the various colours right the way across. Now I will double up some of these triangles with foam pads and add another one on top just to provide a nice bit of dimension across the page, but for now I'm just sticking them flat to the page, and then I can go back and add the second triangle afterwards. So just for ease, I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive on these just to stick them down. So there goes the first one, making sure that the points are right on the edge of the paper. And then I shall carry on across, and I will bring in my T-square ruler just to check that I'm putting everything straight. You can see there, so I pull the bottom row down and then just continue to layer them. And as I say, these are slightly too big, so I would, if you're going to recreate this, just lay them down and see where you can overlap things slightly just to get them to fit. So there's the first row, and then I'm going to work on the bottom next. So again, with my T-square ruler along the top edge, I'm just going to fit all of those triangles across the bottom. And I'm not being too mindful of the colours. I don't want 2 colours together or 2 patterns together, but other than that, I'm just going with it. I'm just grabbing a paper and sticking them down. And so that's the bottom row done. And you can see it's just overlapping slightly there. So I'm just trimming that off. And then I'm using the grid on my glass mat to find the 6-inch mark. And that's where the top of the bottom triangle will go. I hope that makes sense. So just adding that there and then continuing with the pattern right the way across. And again, I'll cut out in a second. I won't make you watch all of this. But you can see there are lots of different scraps. Some very old. There's an old basic grey there, that beautiful floral piece, and then some slightly newer bits as well. These are all just left over from page kits that I've created in the past, and kits that I've broken down when the collection is nearly done. So just adding a double layer on some of those triangles, just to create a little bit of height and definition on the page. And now I'm going to back my photo, first of all with this lovely spotty paper. I've already got a thin white border on the photo. That was how it printed, so I just kept that on there. And you can see this scrap has been cut into, but I'm not bothered about that slight cut on the right hand side because once it's all glued down, you won't notice it anyway. So just using my ATG to get this stuck down. So how are you getting on? Have you been using your scraps? I hope that this is inspiring you to reach into them and start using what you've got. I'm not talking about scraps that I keep with my collections, if that's how you store yours. I'm talking about those little bits and pieces that you've got when the collections have nearly finished and you just throw them in a box and they're all just in there. Well, that's what this box is, and it's just got too cumbersome, really. There's too much in there, but it's going to take a little while to get this down because, as Helen mentioned the other day, she imagines me putting the scraps back in the scraps box, and I do. So in fact, from this layout there is some scraps left over of 1 3/4 inch squares, so I'm going to, in my next video, show how I use those, just in a different pattern and a different feel to the page. It's important to have variations, isn't it? So just adding some Stix 2 foam pads behind that photo. Now I've added a second mat just to raise it above the rest of those triangles. And now I'm going to embellish. So first of all, I'm grabbing my 49er Market Ticket Essentials and just adding a couple of strips of those down the left-hand side. Because it's the kids holding these tickets, I thought they absolutely had to be used on this. And then I find one of those lovely arrow pieces. I do love these in these ticket boxes. I try and keep them separate and use them for occasions like this. So just pointing to the photo. So just, I managed to get ATG look on my layout, so just rubbing that off and then getting these 2 rows of tickets stuck down. I'm just scrunching that one up slightly. I don't know why I bother, because by the time it's down it flattens out again, but I tried. Of course the ATG tape ran out just as I was doing that. So just getting that tucked underneath and layered neatly in there. And then adding that arrow to the bottom. Just using some glue for that now the ATG's run out. And then I decide that I want to rough up the edges of that bigger photo mat, just to create more texture on the page. So now I've gone into my drawer of bits and pieces, and these are some puffy stickers from Heidi Swap's Sun Chaser collection, I think it was. And I just found this word that says splendid. The colours work perfectly with these papers, and it really was a splendid day, so I thought that would work nicely. And then I've got the 2 little hearts I'm going to layer at the bottom there. So I've just got that Sun Chaser word left now on that sheet, so hopefully I'll find a way of using that soon. And then these are some Jen Hadfield tickets from is it Stardust? I'm terrible with names. I can't remember, but I found this piece and I thought that would work really nicely. It just says all smiles, and it's another ticket. So again, carrying on with that ticket theme. Now these are self-adhesive, so I'm just trying that in place there before I stick it down, which is, it's now stuck down. And then coming in with some really old letter stickers from Scenic Route. I love these letter stickers, so I have been hoarding them a little bit, but I thought they would be perfect on this layout, something nice and bold. So I'm just spelling out Disney, going backwards from the ticket, just to get it in the right place for me. And then underneath that I shall put on ice. So there's nearly there with the word Disney, using one of my capital D's, and then everything else I'm doing lowercase because I didn't have the letters for the rest of the title in capitals. And then this is a camera that I've cut out of one of my scraps. I've got a scrap piece of paper that's full of these cameras, so I've been slowly adding them to pages. I need to sit in front of the telly really and cut all the cameras out, so I've got them to hand. Now this is, gosh, it's testing me, isn't it? This is from Jen Hadfield again. It was her Flower Child collection, and I just found this word today, and the colours went really nicely, and it just fitted into that spot perfectly on that ticket. So I did that, and then my roller date stamp where it says date, and now I'm just going to come in with a tiny bit of journaling that just reads, a fun evening out with Leanne and Sophie at the MEN Arena, Manchester. I didn't need to say that we were watching Disney on Ice because that's already in the title, so that's why it was just a small amount of journaling. And finally, on the original layout, I had used a pin and pricked all the way around the edges of these lines. I didn't want to do that this time, and I didn't want to get the sewing machine out, so I'm just using my grey pen to create faux dots all the way along to look like it's been stitched. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I shall see you again very soon. Bye.